The morning sun poured its golden light over the quiet town of Willowbend, a place where time seemed to move just a little slower and people still smiled at strangers on the street. Among the cobblestone paths and the scent of fresh bread from the old bakery lived Margaret Hale, a 68-year-old retired nurse who had seen the best and worst of humanity. Her days now were calm, mornings spent tending her garden, afternoons reading by the window, and evenings sipping tea while watching the world beyond her picket fence. Yet lately, she felt something missing. The laughter of her late husband, the chatter of her children who now lived in distant cities, all of it had faded into echoes. Her life had grown quiet, perhaps too quiet. One brisk Tuesday, a knock came at her door just as the first few leaves of autumn drifted down from the elm trees outside. Margaret wiped her hands on her apron and shuffled to answer it. Standing there was a young man, no older than 25, his clothes dusty and his backpack worn. His eyes carried the weariness of someone who'd been on the road too long. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you," he began softly. "I'm looking for any odd jobs or maybe a place where I can earn a meal. My name's Eli." Margaret studied him for a moment. She'd seen many faces like his during her nursing years, tired, uncertain, but not unkind. There was something about him that stirred a flicker of empathy deep within her chest. "Well," she said finally, her voice gentle, "I can't offer much work, but I was just about to have lunch. Would you like to join me?" Eli's shoulders relaxed with visible relief. "I'd be grateful, ma'am. I can help in the garden after, if you'd like." Margaret smiled faintly. "We'll see about that." Inside, she served him a bowl of vegetable soup and a slice of her homemade bread. As he ate, she noticed the way he paused before each bite, as if remembering to be thankful for it. They talked, just a little at first. He told her he'd been traveling town to town, taking small jobs where he could. His mother had passed away 2 years ago, and he'd lost his apartment soon after. He was trying to make his way north to find work at a construction site that a friend had mentioned. Something in his story tugged at Margaret's heart. She had no sons of her own, only daughters who were too busy with their lives to visit often. Eli reminded her of what she imagined a son might have been like, humble, kind, and quietly determined. After lunch, Eli insisted on helping her with the garden. Together, they trimmed the rose bushes and pulled out stubborn weeds. Margaret watched as he worked carefully, treating every plant as if it were something precious. As the afternoon light began to wane, Margaret brought out lemonade, and they sat on the porch. Eli looked around the little home, his eyes softening. "This place feels like it's full of stories," he said. She chuckled. "That's one way of putting it. 50 years in one house will do that." Before he left that evening, Margaret handed him a small paper bag. "There's some bread and fruit inside. You'll need it more than I will." He looked as though he wanted to refuse, but she gave him a firm nod that said the matter wasn't up for debate. "Thank you, ma'am," he said, his voice low. "You've been kinder than most." When he disappeared down the street, Margaret felt an unexpected heaviness settle in her heart. It was strange how someone could walk into your life for just an afternoon and somehow leave an emptiness behind when they were gone. Days passed, and she found herself thinking of Eli often, wondering if he'd found work, if he was safe, if he was warm. Then one evening, as she was about to close her door for the night, she noticed a folded piece of paper wedged under her welcome mat. It was a note from Eli. "Dear Mrs. Hale, thank you for your kindness. I made it to the next town and found work for a few days. I wanted you to know that your soup and bread gave me more than food, it gave me hope. Sometimes, that's what keeps a person going. I'll never forget your kindness. Eli." Margaret read the letter twice, then folded it neatly and placed it inside her old photo album. Something about it made her chest swell, not with sadness, but with a quiet pride. She didn't know it then, but that small act of compassion had started something that would ripple far beyond her little cottage. Winter came early that year, blanketing Willowbend in frost and silence. Margaret's health began to falter, the cold bit harder, her steps grew slower. One evening, as snow fell thick outside, her neighbor, Mrs. Crawford, knocked to check on her. "You shouldn't be alone in this weather," she scolded softly. "Do you have enough firewood?" "I'll manage," Margaret assured her, though in truth, the pile beside the hearth was nearly gone. That night, as the wind howled through the trees, Margaret sat bundled in blankets, dozing in her chair. She woke to a sound outside, the creak of the gate, footsteps on the porch. Her heart thudded nervously until a familiar voice called out. "Mrs. Hale." "It's me, Eli." She hurried to open the door, and there he was, dusted with snow but smiling. In his arms, he carried a bundle of firewood. "I was passing through again, heading north for another job," he said. "Thought I'd stop by." Tears sprang to her eyes before she could stop them. "You shouldn't be out in this weather, child." He grinned. "Neither should you." That night, they sat by the fire together, sipping tea and sharing stories. Eli told her about the people he'd met along the way, the farmer who gave him a coat, the woman at the diner who let him wash dishes for a hot meal, the mechanic who fixed his old bicycle for free. "It's funny," he said thoughtfully, "how kindness travels. I think yours started something." Margaret tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "When people were kind to me, I told them about you. About the lady who gave a stranger a meal and didn't ask for anything back. They always said that stories like that make them want to do more, too." Margaret laughed softly, shaking her head. "I didn't do anything special." Eli looked at her with gentle sincerity. "You answered when compassion came calling, ma'am. That's special enough." After that night, Eli stayed a few days, helping her around the house, fixing the leaky gutter, and chopping more wood. The house felt alive again with his presence, with laughter and warmth. Before he left, he hugged her tightly and promised to visit again come spring. But spring brought unexpected changes. Margaret's health declined rapidly, and one morning, she didn't wake up. The neighbors found her sitting peacefully in her chair, a letter in her lap addressed simply to Eli. It read, "Dear Eli, if you're reading this, I'm probably watching over you from somewhere better. Don't be sad. Life has a way of giving us what we need when we need it most. You were that gift for me. Thank you for reminding me that kindness doesn't end, it keeps moving from one soul to another. Keep answering when compassion comes calling. With love. Margaret." Months later, Eli returned to Willowbend, only to find her home empty and the garden overgrown. When the neighbors told him what had happened, he stood silently for a long while. Then he knelt in her garden and began to pull the weeds, just like he had the first day they met. In the weeks that followed, he took it upon himself to restore the place, trimming the roses, repainting the fence, fixing the shutters. When he was done, he placed a small wooden sign by the gate. It read, "The house where compassion lived." People in town began to notice. They started visiting, first out of curiosity, then out of something deeper. Eli would greet them with tea and tell them about Mrs. Hale, the woman who had taught him that kindness didn't need to be grand to change a life. Soon, others began leaving small tokens at the gate, flowers, letters, drawings, little notes of gratitude to strangers who had helped them. Before long, the cottage became a quiet symbol of hope in Willowbend. School children on their way home would stop to water the flowers. Travelers would pause to rest on the bench outside. Those who had lost faith in goodness found a reminder there that compassion still existed. Years passed. Eli eventually settled in the town, opening a small repair shop. He hired people who needed second chances, the drifter, the single mother, the teenager trying to find his way. Whenever anyone asked why he did it, his answer was always the same. Because once, someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. And I promised I'd keep that kindness going. Every Sunday, he would visit Margaret's grave, a quiet spot under the willow tree near the edge of town. He'd bring a fresh bouquet from her garden and sit beside her for a while, talking as if she were still there. Sometimes he'd read her the letters people left at the cottage, stories of compassion that had spread far beyond their little town. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft amber light, Eli whispered, "You were right, Mrs. Hale. Kindness doesn't end." Somewhere in the rustle of the willow leaves, he almost thought he heard her gentle laugh, the same one that had welcomed him years ago. The world outside continued to change, but within that small corner of Willowbend, the legacy of one woman's compassion lived on. It lived in the warm meals shared between neighbors, in the helping hands offered to strangers, in the quiet acts no one ever saw but everyone somehow felt. And whenever someone new asked about the little cottage with flowers in every color and the wooden sign at the gate, Eli would smile softly and say, "That's where compassion came calling," and someone answered. And from that answer, 100 more followed, carried on by hearts that remembered what it meant to care, to give, and to heal. Because kindness, once planted, never truly fades. It grows roots deep in the soil of memory and blossoms again wherever compassion dares to call.